everybody. Welcome to the Couch Sports Talk Podcast. I am your boy Goozy, here with Young E, here with Philanthropist, and we analyze, watch sports the same way that you do on the fucking couch. Now let's get into it. How are you guys doing today? I know it's been a little bit of a break since we've done our last episode, but how are you guys doing?
I'm doing fantastic, brother. I'm ready to get into it tonight and talk about sports. We had a long layoff. We had some load management we had to take care of, and we're ready to get back at it tonight.
And
Hell,
man, load managing, but it worked out for me. It's been a really heavy week, and I was able to have that rest off the week off and come in and tackle the week. So now I'm ready to tackle the pod.
oh yeah. And today we're gonna be talking about a little bit about the NBA bubble. We now have the playoffs officially starting since the last time we've done an episode. And we're jumping into the AFC North as well today. And as you see, Young E is ready for that discussion. And
Uncle Shay, baby.
And I'm ready to support and back one of the most hated NFL players in the league. And it makes me very frustrated that he is one of those guys, but I understand it a little bit. I don't understand the Colin Cowherd hate, but I understand maybe the little bit of the hate from the regular people. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. The biggest thing that happened tonight was, in my opinion, the Lakers jumping up and just completely obliterating the Blazers. Blazers kind of look like just right now they're going to be done. Like this could be done in 5 to 6 games just off of what happened tonight. And then, of course, Damian Lillard dislocated his finger. And just from what I've seen tonight, AD, I mean, I was talking to you before, Philanthropist, about how it looked like AD finally stepped up and came in big. And then you were talking to me about how that wasn't, necessarily the case with game one, just because he wasn't hitting the shots. But that doesn't mean he wasn't being dominant. He was still getting open. He was still running the court very well. And I agree. And they were getting the Blazers in foul trouble. So I'll go with you first, Philanthropist. What do you see the Lakers doing? What did they do better the second game in comparison to that first game?
Right. I mean, I think the Lakers came out tonight with just a different sense of urgency. They came out like they were actually ready to play for once. And I think the Blazers had a bit of an advantage going into game one because they had been do or die for about 4 to 5 games at that point. So they're already locked in. They're ready to go. The Lakers had clinched the 1 seed relatively early. And to touch on your point with Anthony Davis, I really want to just bring up the fact that he's looked completely unstoppable for a few weeks now. I mean, game one, he didn't shoot well at all. He went like 8 for 25. But what I was telling Goose was that he every time he touched the ball in the post, he was getting fouled. And at the end of the game, both of the bigs, Nurkic and Whiteside and Melo, both had they all had 5 fouls and were on the verge of fouling out. And I believe Anthony Davis shot 18 free throws. So if he went anything other than 8 and 25 from the field, he would have had a 40 burger easy. And then tonight, obviously, much more smooth sailing for him. He hit all of his shots. He was in the paint doing his thing. And really, he brings it on the other side of the floor, too. He's going to be either second or first place in Defensive Player of the Year voting. And I mean, at this point, I'm not going to say that for his career, he's the best teammate LeBron has ever had. But in regards to individual seasons, I think this is the best individual teammate LeBron has had on any of his teams because he's really at the top of his game and he's hitting his prime right now.
And if you go online right now and you look at the fans that were kind of like how I was a few years ago with LeBron, they're immediately jumping on him because he's getting this game. They're saying he got carried by AD because LeBron only scored 10 points. Is that any concern to you?
No, I mean, LeBron is at the point of his career now where you can, I mean, I watch most of LeBron's games and you can tell when he is just engaged and when he's not engaged. And for him, same thing of what you see with Kawhi very often is that they pick and choose which games they're putting forth most of their effort into. So like with LeBron, you can tell very early on in a game if he's really going to be bringing it tonight or if he's going to try to play through his teammates and just maximize them. And I don't want to make excuses because he hasn't played well in the bubble really or up to his usual standards, but you can really tell he has a form of active load management where he'll suit up, but he's not playing at 100%. You know, he's going through the motions. He's trying to get his teammates involved. And he's really transitioning to a point in his career now where he's going to be the point guard. You know, he's not going to be 30 points a night like he used to, and that's by design. Like he could still do that every now and then, but he definitely at this point in his career can't do that every night.
Definitely. Young E, were you able to watch some of this game?
I didn't really get to catch much of this game. I caught I think some bits and pieces of the second quarter and some bits and pieces of the third. Just work had me off of it. The only game I got to watch today was the Heat and Pacers, which was a great game. Really good game to watch. But I will say, in terms of AD, in my personal opinion, I do think this is far and above the best teammate LeBron has had. I don't think ever in LeBron's career, at least in my opinion, have I seen someone on his team and thought, wow, they could compete with LeBron to be the best player in the NBA. And
Right.
I mean, really, like even before Anthony Davis got to LA, we were already considering him a top 3 player in the NBA. And I think he took a step forward again this year, which is hard to say for somebody who's that good. So I don't think LeBron has, don't get me wrong, Dwayne Wade was great. Chris Bosh was great. That Heat team was great. Kyrie is one of my favorite players in the NBA to watch, but I don't think ever LeBron has had a top 3 player alongside of him, and right now he does. And
Right.
outside of that, they don't have much, and that kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to hurt them as they get down the road. But the thing I do think benefits them is LeBron is kind of active load managing right now. I did notice the scoreline tonight with the 10 points, but I also think with LeBron too, he's at a point in his career where he understands his role. And some games, that role is going to be to go out and score 28 points and get 10 assists and get the triple-double like he needed to in game one, and they still didn't win. Like he could have done more. But then there's nights like tonight where he's going to come out and he can put up 10 points and, dish out maybe 10 assists and get some rebounds and just play his game, play a little bit of defense, take it light, conserve his energy for these later games in the playoffs that they're going to need when they're up against the Clippers or the Nuggets or I can't remember off the top of my head because I'm fucked up who the Nuggets are playing. But whoever makes it out of that series, they got to worry about that a lot more than I think they have to worry about the Blazers. I like the Blazers. They're a good team, but I think they're very one-dimensional. Once you can take out like CJ's mid-range shooting and you take out Dame's outside or perimeter shooting, I really just don't see much there. Nurkic can kind of create in the middle, but outside of that, they really don't have many guys that are really going to consistently put up a bunch of points. So I think he's smart for taking it light right now. I do think the Lakers really needed that wake-up call game one. Like you said, they clinched, I think, after like the first or second game of the bubble. Like it was almost right when we got into the bubble. So, I mean, even if these guys were playing, which I know a couple games, like most of their stars weren't playing. Even if they were playing, they weren't playing to 100%. So I think they needed that wake up call in game one, and then you come out tonight and LeBron puts up 10 points, and the last I saw the score, it was like 98-68. So I don't know what the final ended up. I haven't got to look at it, but to be at a point where LeBron has 10 points and you have a 30-point lead, that just goes to show LeBron can just play his role and we can get through the series.
It definitely helps when, the defense, like LeBron can just be on the court and the defense is going to be attracted to him no matter what.
Right.
It helps out every single player. And, you guys are giving so many positives about the Lakers. So I'll go ahead and just kind of go be, the devil's advocate and kind of point out the things where I'm a little bit worried with them. I didn't think that they were going to have an issue winning the series just because, like Young E was saying, I think they live and die by that 3-pointer. And, you really see the how much of an athletic freak Anthony Davis is when he's going up against someone like Whiteside, who is relatively the same size, but it's just not even close. Like AD can jump over him probably if he wanted to. And then fucking Nurkic looks small sometimes against AD. So it's hard just to defend him. And I think that was the biggest matchup problem going into the series for the Blazers. But the thing that I've noticed with the Lakers, and it's so funny because my grandma even pointed it out to me, that the Blazers didn't seem to be too intimidated by LeBron. And I can see how just as the years gone on, and of course, he's definitely not like, I can't really say he's lost a step, but he's not what he was 4 years ago. And I feel like teams feel like they can challenge him a little bit more. So if LeBron could have a night like this and then maybe Anthony Davis doesn't step up, that's where I get a little worried. And then if you have to start relying on players like Dion Waiters and J.R. Smith, that's where I start to get really worried.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna just say I like Dion Waiters more than I like Danny Green right now. A lot more than I like Danny Green.
Oof. I mean, Danny Green's been playing poorly, but I can't get that far with you. I can't go there yet.
And then, I don't know. I just feel like with the way the Lakers are built as of right now, either LeBron or AD have to play like a top 3 player, and then the other one has to play like a top 10. Like it's really going to be hard for them to have a down game in this Western Conference playoffs.
Right.
They may be able to get by with a couple bad games because, the Blazers seem to have a little bit of. And also, man, with the Blazers, sometimes I see Melo do some old Melo shit where he should have passed the ball and instead he's taken some really bad mid-range jumper and just messes up the whole flow of the offense.
Right.
That's another thing I just had to bring up that was really bothering me the last 2 games. I lost my train of thought. I don't know what I was going to say, but I think they're going to have trouble in the West here, and me and Philanthropist were talking about this before we got started, where we could see maybe the Lakers having trouble against someone like the Jazz, where Gobert is going to be defending AD. So I think in order for them to have a better matchup, they're going to have to go against someone that doesn't have a big man that can match up necessarily like the Blazers do. And if they're going to be heading into series where AD is going to be the more dominant by like a mile in the big man department, I think the series is going to be a breeze. LeBron is just so good at facilitating plays, picking defenses apart. It's, he's really just like a coach on his own. Like I was even watching Vogel just let that man talk to the team a little bit. Like Vogel was just taking a step back. It was really interesting to watch. So I don't know. Just what do you have to say about the concerns moving forward with the Lakers?
I mean, I think they're still going to cakewalk to the Western Conference Finals at least, and that's because they're going to play most likely the Rockets. It's the winner of that series, and it's either going to be the Rockets or the Thunder. The Rockets are now up 2-0, and as you know, they don't play with a big man; they play with PJ Tucker. All respect, I respect the hell out of PJ Tucker. By the way, this is not slander; he's a great player, but he's 6'6". All right, and you're going to be guarding Anthony Davis, and it's going to be a bloodbath. Anthony Davis is going to put up 35 a game if he needs to.
Hey, what happened to Capella?
Oh, they traded him to the Hawks.
Okay.
They went full in on small ball.
Okay.
But yeah, the biggest concern with the Lakers is that I really don't trust their supporting cast at all. I think it's poor. I mean, Danny Green, when he is being himself, is a great piece, but he's in a slump right now, and you never know when that's going to stop. And then really on that whole team, I only trust one person outside of AD and LeBron to like play offense and to initiate, and that's Kuzma. And I'm not high on Kuzma at all. I'm not a big fan of his, and that's a problem. And then you have an assortment of role players who on paper can shoot threes, like, your J.R. Smiths, your Danny Greens, your Quinn Cooks, your KCPs, but they're famously shoddy. And then you have more question marks like Caruso, Rajon Rondo. He's going to help them when he comes back because he can still bring the ball up the court and dribble and distribute. But overall, it's a shaky roster, and they've really overperformed, I think, this year. So I really, unless playoff P on the Clippers keeps up his antics, I really think the Clippers are going to take this.
Could you see, kind of moving on to maybe some upsets?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see another team so far with the games that you've watched instead of the Lakers or the Clippers in the West?
Right.
Not saying it will happen, but could you see a potential team other than the Clippers and Lakers?
No, I have one. You could lock it in. This isn't a finals pick, but this is a round one upset that I'm locking in right now. It's the Jazz over the Nuggets. The Nuggets really had to scrape and grind for that game 1 win. And really what that game showed me is that the Nuggets are almost completely reliant on Jokic consistently being the best player on the floor, whether he's distributing or whether he's getting his own buckets. And it's just a bad matchup because Gobert, you got to think about it. He doesn't have to expend his energy on offense at all. That's not his job. He can spend the entire game putting all of his effort towards defense and towards Jokic, and then they'll still have Donovan Mitchell, who, by the way, put up 57 points in game 1, which is, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's more points than LeBron has ever put up in a playoff game. That's more points than Kobe ever put up in a playoff game. That's the third most all time. That's 57 freaking points in a playoff game. And really, I just think with the way things are going right now with both the Nuggets and the Jazz, I don't see a reason why the Jazz aren't going to win that series. I think it's a poor matchup for the Nuggets. I think the supporting cast is a push. I think they both have equally good supporting casts. And then I think Donovan Mitchell is going to be the best player on the floor during the series.
Okay. Young E, before I get to you for upsets, I kind of want to just throw out there that I am not too confident myself in George Paul. And if there was going to be an upset, I could really see the Mavs doing it. Luka Doncic just makes me cry every single day that he plays. The fact that he could have been a Sacramento King and it didn't happen. And then Porzingis, with the way he's been shooting, if he doesn't get ejected out of that first game, they might be up 2-0.
Yeah,
they've been playing really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
And Porzingis is called the unicorn for a reason. If he's hitting threes, he's unguardable. You can't block that shit. So the Clippers also have me concerned with it's just George Paul.
It really is.
It's just so funny. He was talking all that shit about that.
He's a bitch.
Man, Damian Lillard. And he's going out there doing shit like that, man. Come on.
Playoff P. Back at it again.
Young, you go ahead. And what do you think about upsets?
Upset-wise, I do agree with you. I think I probably have the Mavs as the upset. On the other hand, Paul George is probably my favorite player in basketball. Him and Kyrie, I just love watching them play. I love what they bring to the floor.
Wow.
But okay. I do know
Paul
George is not a playoff basketball player. I mean, let's be real. He started his first 5 years of his career in Indiana, and who was their second best player? Like he's just not gonna be a playoff player. I think
he was cool with the Pacers in the playoffs.
No, he was,
took
but
LeBron to 7.
I think you have to be bred into a team. Like when you get drafted, you have to be bred into a team with playoff experience and, some playoff salve that's going to bring in and kind of show you what it's like to get down and dirty in the playoffs. Cause it's very different.
Yeah.
And so I think, when you get a young guy on a team who doesn't, isn't surrounded by people with playoff experience and it's just a bunch of young guys or a bunch of veterans that have never been to the playoffs, it really hurts them in their development maybe 10 years down the road when they have their own team and they're that veteran. Well, you might have that playoff experience, but since you didn't come into the league surrounded by that playoff experience, now you're kind of, you're hurting from that. And because I think a lot of what playoffs has to do with this experience, I think it, every year, every sport, I see what it comes down to at the end of the day is how long has this team been together? How good is their chemistry? And how experienced are they in the playoffs? Rarely do you see a team of young guys come up and take a championship. It's very rare in any sport.
Right.
So I think that playoff experience is invaluable. I think him lacking that at the beginning of his career with the people that surrounded him is hurting him now. And I think I'm not going to go and blame it all on Paul George. The rest of the team did not play well either. I mean, let's be fucking real. Patrick Beverley has a combined 8 points through 2 fucking games.
He's getting cooked.
He didn't play.
He's getting cooked.
Well.
Okay.
He got cooked game 1.
Then in game 1, he had 3 points, and I did see that, and he was getting fucking worked on.
40 burger.
I think easy money. I think if I'm taking any upset in this round, it's probably going to be the Mavs. What I see from Luka is, potential to in 5 years be the best player in the NBA if Giannis takes, if Giannis doesn't keep improving, that's kind of hard to guess. But I think Luka has that potential to be, one of the top players in the league. And then I think, I was. Weirdly enough, I got to watch a lot of Porzingis when he was in New York. I don't know why, because I wasn't really into basketball. But that dude is something special. I really don't know, what it is. He's 7'2". He can do everything, literally everything on the court. He doesn't have a downside to his game. I don't see any part of his game where I'm wow, he's really weak there. He really needs to improve. He might. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I know he's kind of skinny. So I don't know how he is on the defensive side, if he can really body up with a big guy like AD.
He's decent.
But, I think that guy is like someone special who, you get Luka on a good night who, he comes out and puts up 40, and then you get Porzingis on a good night who comes up and put out 70 or 30, and a combined 70 between the two. I think they could beat any team in the West. I mean, they are a damn good team, but I think
Right.
A thing that Jordan said earlier that stuck out to me was I think the Lakers will breeze through any series where AD does not have, someone locking him down. And as
Yeah.
I look at the Western Conference, it's like, who's going to do that? They're going to see the Rockets next round, who, as you said, they don't play with the big. So it's like AD is going to be putting up 30 plus points a game, most likely, and
Right.
probably getting 20 rebounds a game as well. And then after that, they're going to see maybe the Clippers, who I don't think they have the best bigs to
No,
play
they don't.
defense. I mean,
They don't have any answer for AD.
So I think the Western Conference is an easy run for the Lakers, even with their shoddy supporting cast. I think when we will really see that supporting cast come to its downfall is in the finals in whatever team they play against the East, whether that's the Bucks, the Raptors. Personally, I've been cheering for the Heat. But, I think those Eastern Conference teams, a lot more of them have an answer for AD than the Western Conference teams do. The only Western Conference team that I really think has an answer for AD is the Jazz with Rudy Gobert, and then maybe the Nuggets. Just because I know they have a lot of big guys and they can rotate those big guys on AD.
Right.
But still at that point, like the way he's handled Nurkic and Whiteside, it's like I don't even know at that point.
Right.
And I know Bam has been a really good defender this year, and I think that's a good matchup. But I still think, AD would put the work on him.
I mean, make no mistake, if it's the Bucks in the finals, Giannis will be guarding AD.
Mm-hmm.
And
100%.
I mean, he's big enough and he's strong enough, and he's probably going to be the defensive player of the year. Giannis is. I mean, so that, oh my God, I would love to watch that. I'd give an arm and a leg to see a Lakers Bucks finals for that reason. And really, what I think it comes down to is with the Lakers and Clippers series that's looking inevitable. AD will probably be the best player on the floor. LeBron will be either the second or the third best player on the floor. But then when you talk about, number 3 through number 10 of the best players on the floor, those are probably all Clippers. So that's going to be the tough part for that series.
Phil, I was wanting to ask you as well. Are you concerned at all with the lack of, we were just talking about playoff experience. Are you concerned with the lack of playoff experience for AD? Or do you think having LeBron and the coaching staff's going to help him with that?
I wouldn't say that AD is lacking playoff experience. I mean, he's been
in it, but he's never really been, because of the way they're playing, like we were talking about earlier, they're setting up AD to take over the team. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would look at the context of his playoff series. So one of them, he was the 8 seed and they played the Warriors and they stole a game, that's an accomplishment. And then another time they were the 6 seed and they swept the Blazers in the 3 seed. And really, with AD, I don't have any question marks about his, ability to show up in big moments. He's there, he shows up. With the playoffs, you can kind of see it with guys. It's like they either have it or they don't. So like an example would be George Paul. All respect to him, but he just doesn't have it, or he used to before he broke his leg, but now it's a different story. And with AD, I don't have any doubts about his ability to show up. For me, it's the injuries. Like today, I don't know if you caught this, but he took a weird fall after a dunk and he twisted his ankle on the stanchion. And he's just clumsy, like he always gets little dingy injuries like that. So if he's available and he's healthy and he's on the court, he's fine. And then you have LeBron too. So really, it's like in boxing when they call it, you have a puncher's chance. Like the Lakers just have a puncher's chance against anybody because they have 2 top 4 players, top 3 players, whatever you want to call it.
Definitely. And I also wanted to bring up I don't know how like relevant this stat is or this record was, but it's impressive to think about just because of who it was. But Luka Doncic passes Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the most points in the first 2 playoff games.
Yep.
That's crazy. And
it hurts,
especially doing it against one of the better defensive teams in the Clippers. Like that's really impressive.
Yeah.
So yeah, it hurts a lot.
Really, really, really bad.
And I kind of want to go back to the Clippers and just say, I think they've given into the hype as well. They don't seem to be going in with the same sense of urgency that I seen from the Lakers tonight.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to note too that the Mavs are not a normal 7 seed. I mean, that's very common in the Western Conference, but like if they were in the Eastern Conference, I believe they'd be the 6 or the 5 seed. And they're like they're 2 games behind the 5 seed. They're really, really good. It's just the West is tough, and they happen to be the team that's in 7th. And really, in a post-Warriors world, like there's not much separating any of these teams 1 to 7, including the Trailblazers too, because if they were healthy all year, they would not be an 8 seed. They would be like a 5 seed or a 6 seed. So, you got to take everything with a grain of salt, and especially with no home court advantage, like anything and everything can happen.
See, and I think that hurts the Lakers too.
When the Warriors come back, bro.
I don't want to see it.
All right, go ahead, Youngie.
I just think the lack of fans and no home court advantage. I know we kind of talked about it, with the Clippers series, but I just think in general, the lack of fans really hurts the Lakers, and it hurts LeBron because I know LeBron, like when we watch him play, he thrives off the fans. Yeah. If they start cheering after a dunk, you will see him turn it up to 120 for like the next 4 plays just because. And then like without fans, you're not getting that. And that when I did watch, I got to watch a little bit of game 1. That is what I saw. Is it just looked like there was so much of a lack of enthusiasm from the Lakers because there's no fans, and it's like. Right. I do think that's that's probably the team that gets hurt the worst from not having fans is them. Just because I think their players really, I think, even their role players like Danny Green and, Dion Waiters and all of them, I think they just thrive off of having fans there and, getting the crowd hyped up. And, that's just a part of their game. And to not have that, it brings them back a lot.
And this is something I want to bring up about this too, is that these are the types of circumstances where when you have like an MJ, I hate everybody, I want to kill everybody mentality, this is when having that helps. And but I'm bringing this up because I was watching the Bucks and Magic game today, and there was 10 seconds left in the game. The Bucks were up 111-94. It was like 27, 20-ish points lead. Giannis takes the ball down and he tries to go for a layup, and there's a no call. And it's like, it's not even that bad of a no call. And he's pissed, bro. He's screaming at the ref. He's like, what the fuck is that? Are you kidding me? And the point I'm trying to make is that when you have no fans and no external enthusiasm to generate from that, you have to just get mad at the most random things. You have to almost be like Shaq when he said he used to make up stories in his head about how he got disrespected by somebody just to motivate you to still come out and play at 100%.
That shit would be weird. But yeah, I like the I was even thinking that I wouldn't mind if they would do like a playoff bubble like every 5 years after this. Just like have it just be not everything that's frequent, because I know it makes them so much money in the arenas. But I just think it'd be something interesting to do every once in a while, just because what I do like about it is it makes it so much more interesting from the standpoint of like when LeBron, when he makes a big block or when he does that stupid fucking walk-up 3. And there's no crowd that cheers behind him, that other team doesn't feel as demoralized, so they go right back. Like the battles are just so much stronger. They feel just more comfortable to do that.
Right.
I love it. I actually like having no fans there because you really just see, like you said, who has that mentality to go get it.
Right. Definitely.
And I also got to say, man, Sixers are ass.
Oh yeah,
so ass.
Bye, Brett Brown.
But like that goes back to what I said earlier. They brought in a bunch of young players, and they didn't have anybody surrounding those young players with any sort of playoff experience. And now these young players have been to what? They've been to 3 straight playoffs and been knocked out in the first round. They made it to the second round last year against Kawhi. Yeah. And had that heartbreaking loss. But I mean, still, they're just not having success because it's a bunch of young guys who didn't have playoff experience around them. So I think that it definitely hurts, bro.
Well, Joel, you got to get better, Joel.
I think that's why they brought in Al Horford, to help with that playoff experience and just making everybody more calm on the court and bringing that leader. But I think the problem with the Sixers is that they just have a bunch of talent, but I don't know if they necessarily fit well together.
Yeah. Right.
They don't.
Exactly.
It's like they went to 2K and just picked a bunch of players with the best overalls.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Here's my thing: is their best 4 players on their team are all excluding Joel Embiid, they're all forwards. You can't. I mean, it's hard to. I get that Ben Simmons plays a point forward position, but he's still a forward. And to have him playing point guard is kind of. I mean, it's just silly to me because then, like, put him up against someone like Dame, he's gonna get fucking cooked, and he's gonna give up 50 points. Like, that's just how it's gonna go. But I'm not too high on Ben.
He's all defense first team.
But
just to throw that out there.
He's a good. But it also helps when you're 6'10" and you're playing point guard against a bunch of dudes that are 6'3", 6'4". You know what I mean?
Well, he can't play offense as a point guard because he can't play offense. I mean, that's a whole nother story.
He just can't shoot. But that's my thing is they brought in Al Horford, and I just didn't see how are you going to fit him into your offense.
It's a horrible fit.
When you have Joel Embiid and you have Ben Simmons, and then you have Tobias Harris too, which I don't think Tobias Harris is all that great of a fit either. I was really high on Tobias Harris, and he just this year, like from what I saw, he shit the bed, and I don't even think it was his fault. I just think he doesn't fit in that offense. It's not an offense.
It's a very jumbled team, very jumbled together.
I'm so happy Jimmy got out of there.
Yeah, Jimmy though. When I see the Sixers play against a team that can actually shoot the ball, all I see them do is
I need water. Help me. Help.
Because they can't keep up the scoring. All it takes is like say they go up against a team like the Raptors. Van Fleet just has to go up there and just score 2 back-to-back threes. And then the Sixers are just like, oh well, I don't know how we're supposed to get back to that. It's very hard when they're down, it's hard for them to come back because of that lack of shooting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't fuck with the Sixers.
Joel just has to be better, man. He has to be better.
It's not all on him. Like I could see Joel go out there and put up 30, 10, and 15, and they're still not gonna win the fucking game because the team doesn't fit well together.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not trying to hear that though, because I've seen many superstars who have done more with less, much less talent than what's there.
I mean, I agree, but I mean, still, like, I can't put it all on Joel, bro. The team is just really poorly built.
I'm not putting it all on Joel, but I think we can all agree that he's not at his 100% potential.
Yeah. Also, who is their coach?
This game anymore?
No, it's not. And yeah, Brett Brown does need to go. By the way, he's horrible. Don't get me wrong.
That's what I thought.
Shit, he is. Shit.
There's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on in Philadelphia.
And I know a lot of people thought he should have been fired a while ago. He shouldn't even been there this year.
Yeah. Agreed.
We'll see. I mean, they keep him around another year and another, early playoff exit, and I just don't see how you could keep him around any longer than that.
Before we move on, I do want to ask, was there any concerns with the Bucks losing that game 1, or do you think they reestablished themselves tonight?
No, none, zero, zilch.
Really? See,
the Raptors lost game 1 against the Magic last year, and they won the finals. I don't want it. It just happens sometimes. It is what it is.
That's fair. I was just concerned just because it's the Magic, but now that you say that, I mean, that's fair. But yeah, that was my only concern. Is it was like, I mean, really, they lost to the Magic?
Bro, DJ Augustine, he gets me hyped up. Vucevic got me hyped up.
Okay, Vucevic is hot. Like Vucevic has always been hot, but let's be real. DJ Augustine is like a role player, bro.
He's that guy you take when you have 1 pick left in a 2K fantasy draft.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, I'll get DJ Augustine. That's fine.
You know who I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Mavs?
Who?
Boban.
Ooh, big man.
Hey, I just want to throw it out there because I did see this today. His parents are 5'4" and 5'2".
Yeah.
Bro, what the fuck?
Hey,
this
how tall's the mailman?
At least 24 inches taller than both of his parents.
I wonder how tall the neighbors are.
Shit.
Fuck off. All right. That's enough bubble talk. Good conversation. I'm really interested. This is one of the most fucking just every game almost, especially on the West. Mm-hmm. Every game is a top tier game. I will say I've been a little disappointed with the Thunder.
Yeah. Same here.
I was hoping that they would step up a little bit more and take advantage of the fact that there was no Russell Westbrook playing. But the Rockets are a good team when they're hitting those fucking threes. At that game plan, when it works, it fucking works. And I'm really interested to see what they're going to look like with playoff Russell Westbrook and see if he's going to allow Harden to kind of take the ball in those late game crunch time moments.
Isn't basketball great?
It's fucking great.
It's great.
And I love the Raptors. Okay, that's it. We are now going to be moving on to our AFC North deep dive. It is actually our last division. So let's get it with the very first team, and that is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals, who finished last and dead last in the fucking NFL. Jeez, bro. They were awful. I was actually mad that they made the Dolphins look good last year towards the end of the season because I wanted that number 1 pick. I wanted Joe Burrow. But it is what it is. The Bengals, they did try to make a good move by signing Trey Waynes this last offseason to a 3-year, $42 million deal. And unfortunately, he did suffer a pectoral injury and will miss a significant amount of the season. And other than that, they haven't really made any other additions besides the draft, which they got Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, which I thought were great picks. I'm still questioning whether I like Zach Taylor or not. I was a little familiar with him before he got there because he used to be the quarterback coach for the Dolphins. And I think the biggest thing for me, I would say the 2 biggest things is AJ Green needs to stay healthy. And number 2, they need to get an indoor practice facility. Do you know how fucking cold it gets in Cincinnati? Do you know how shit the weather is?
Hey, they got the number 1 pick, man. I don't think they can go much longer without getting an indoor facility. I just can't see him lasting much longer.
Joe Burrow is going to walk in and swing that log between his legs with that fucking confidence and just tell that motherfucker build a fucking indoor practice facility, because if they don't, that shoulder's going to get cold and AJ Green's going to keep fucking hurting his legs. So I'm gonna let Young E speak on these teams first, just because I know he is so well versed. He's in every team's war room in the AFC North. He is Baltimore Ravens' number 1 spy. What do you have to say about the Bengals this year? And they have nowhere to go but fucking up. So where did they improve?
That's exactly it. They have nowhere to go but up. With Zach Taylor, I wasn't that low on him when it came to the Bengals. I really like Zach Taylor. I think we have seen like an overhaul of offensive coaches in the NFL since Sean McVay kind of came out and showed his big dick. So I think now we're seeing coaches like Matt LaFleur and Zach Taylor get pulled into these roles, and I really like what they bring to the table. And I think Zach Taylor, last year was what it was. We knew before the season that the Bengals were the worst team in the NFL. They have very little talent. And there were points in times in the last 3 years when I've seen the Bengals, and it's not even like it got to a point where I was like, AJ Green's not even hurt, bro. He just doesn't want to fucking play. Like dead ass. And I would watch their games and like I feel it, bro. Like I really do. I wouldn't want to play for that team either. The defense is abysmal at best. And then you fucking like with Andy Dalton at quarterback.
Practice facility for AJ Green. Of course he doesn't want to fucking play.
Exactly. So that's my thing with them. But I will say this season I just think bringing in Joe Burrow is like, fuck. That's something, bro. I saw Joe Burrow do shit last year in college football that no one has ever done before. I am a big LSU fan. For those of you guys that don't know, LSU and Clemson all the way. Big Tigers fan. But I caught almost every LSU game last year, and from beginning to end, I was like, this dude is the best quarterback in college football. By week 3 of college football, I knew who was the one.
I was going to say that by week 2, week 3, Young E was telling me that to watch out for Joe Burrow, and I was like, who the fuck is that?
See, bro, and I really fucked up because at that point, like if I would have bet on him winning the Heisman, that odds were probably still like 5,000 to 1 because he wasn't
Casino
known yet.
Jones.
So I mean,
Casino Jones.
that's an L for me. But like I said, Joe Burrow is something special. And then I think a big thing that they needed to do on their offense was figure out if AJ Green doesn't want to play, who the fuck is gonna play? Because they've just cycled guys through these positions. I mean, Tyler Boyd is good. I really do think Tyler Boyd is good, but he can't fill AJ Green's role when he's not on the field. He just can't. Tyler Boyd is a slot receiver, in my opinion. He can play a little bit on the outside, but he can't run deep routes. You can't expect him to catch back shoulder fades. He just doesn't have that. Then you bring in T. Higgins, who has that. T. Higgins was, in my opinion, outside of the Alabama receivers and maybe CeeDee Lamb, I kind of thought he was the best receiver in the draft. I'm going to say Ruggs and Judy are far above, and CeeDee Lamb too. Like, those three guys were far above everybody else. But I think T. Higgins easily could have been swapped with Justin Jefferson or any of those other guys that went late in that first round. I'm really big on T. Higgins. I saw him do a lot for Trevor Lawrence last year and even a little bit the year before. He's a good player, so I think he could definitely fill that role when AJ Green is not playing. But I know we talked about it a little bit in the show or before the show. I think definitely AJ Green, with them bringing in Joe Burrow, now has a motivation to want to play. I have someone who can actually throw the ball 10 yards down the field accurately. I haven't had that in 8 years. You know what I'm saying, bro? All right, I'm going to chill on Andy Dalton. I'm a big Andy Dalton hater because I've just seen him be super ass, and I think he was the worst starting quarterback last year. But you bring in, I think you go from 32 of starting quarterbacks and you go up to at least 15 with Joe Burrow, if not higher, because I think the quarterback position is also pretty thin in the NFL. But I think their offense is good. It's actually good. Their defense is probably still 32 in the NFL. It's terrible. But their offense, they got Joe Mixon, they got Gio Bernard, who has proven himself as a, third down back, a second string back. He's, in my opinion, probably the best third down back in football, at least history-wise. He's been doing it for, 6 years now, and that dude can catch passes and do, most things that third down backs can't do. And then Joe Mixon is a good player when he's playing. And then they have a good offensive line too. So I think they took the right direction this year going with Higgins and Burrow, because I think, with that offensive-minded coach, now they're a team that can go up and put, 30 on a team. Last year, there was no way in hell the Bengals at any game of the season were putting 30 on a team. Just wasn't happening. But this year, they definitely have that potential. So, I think they made the right direction. They really improved the offense. That defense is still ass, and I think the defense is going to get them torched in this division because outside of the Steelers, I think this is a really heavy offensive division.
Okay, I'm gonna just jump into this, and I don't disagree with your assessment of their roster. I think their offense is actually pretty good. Their defense is still pretty bad. My gripe with what you were saying is that I'm not a huge fan of Zach Taylor at all. And I say that because never in recent history that I've watched has there ever been a coach that went 0-16 or 1-15 or anything in that neighborhood and turned it around and actually been a good coach. Like another coach who had a horrible roster last year, like a dog shit roster, and actually turned it around and won 5 or 6 games was Brian Flores.
Okay, but they had a better roster than the Bengals.
That's debatable.
Yes, they did.
That's highly debatable.
Yes, they did.
And
they have more talent on the defense.
Well, first and foremost,
Dolphins,
Andy Dalton was not the 32nd best quarterback in the league last year. That's just a little bit of an exaggeration.
I don't know.
The Dolphins broke a record for having the most players come into the team. So they were cutting like 10 players a week and then coming in new 10 fucking players that haven't played in 2 years, undrafted free agents.
They got star power on both sides of the ball that the Bengals just don't have. Ryan Fitzpatrick, bring some sort of confidence to the field that not one single person on the Bengals can bring that to the field. Who the fuck is going to walk up in Jameis Winston's shirt with their chest hair fucking out at the interview booth on the Bengals? Not a single fucking person, bro. And then
he's not star power.
You at least put Xavier Howard on the defense. That at least gives you someone who's good on the defense.
Well, we can
I really don't think the Bengals have anybody good on the defense. Atkins is like 5 years out of his prime.
We can go beyond the Dolphins, though. It's not just them. Like Kyle Shanahan, for example, he had 2 rough years with the Niners, but he was never going 1-15 or 2-14. I'm a big fan of the belief that if you go 1-15, you're not cut out to be a coach. Period. No matter, I don't care how bad your roster is. If you do that, you're bad. When has there ever been a counter argument to that?
I don't know, bro. I also think they're in one of the best divisions of football. And I know last year we played the NFC West, who, if the AFC North wasn't the best division in football, the NFC West was for sure. So it wasn't like they had an easy schedule last year. If you look at the matchups, each matchup, the only team you could say that they were maybe better than talent-wise is the Dolphins. And they lost that game, I'm pretty sure. But I don't remember who they beat, but like talent-wise, I would say maybe the Dolphins and the Washington football team. Those are the only 2 teams that are like down in that category, and I think the Dolphins are out of that category now. Last year they were there, but this year they're out.
Well, they might have lost to the Dolphins because they got out-coached. Just a thought.
I mean, Brian Flores is a hell of a coach, bro. He almost won Coach of the Year last year, and what did they go, 6-10?
Yeah.
11.
See, and he almost won Coach of the Year. So, like, it's hard for me to keep comparing Zach Taylor to Brian Flores because Brian Flores went 5-11 and almost got Coach of the Year. So,
yeah.
And that's exactly what Philanthropist is saying.
No, I'm not taking it, bro. The Dolphins, I think, had a better lineup than you had Devontae Parker come out last year. He played really well.
Good AJ Green.
And how many games did he play last year? Actually, no, let's break it down to minutes. How many minutes did he play last year? I don't even think he played a full fucking game.
Like you said, that could be because of choice.
Fair, but that doesn't put him back into the offense if he chose to not play. Well, he's not in the offense.
I don't like that argument with Devontae Parker anyways, just from the standpoint of this last season was really the first season he actually wasn't hurt.
Yeah, and he played well. He was your best receiver last year. But I also am going to say, outside of AJ Green, Devontae Parker is better than any receiver on the Bengals. I think the only thing the Bengals really had on the Dolphins last year was offensive line. I think the Dolphins had the better defense, had the better receivers. Okay, running back too. Definitely running back. Joe Mixon is good. But
Boyd, though, he was better than any other receiver besides Devontae Parker.
I mean, yeah. So, but still, Devontae Parker is better than Boyd, so I'm still going to give that. Because then after that, after those 2 guys, I don't even know the receivers on the teams because they're that bad. They're that bad. So after that, I don't know who's the next receiver.
I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know if I'm forgetting somebody, but I'm fairly positive that every coach who's had a 1-15 season has not turned it around, at least with the team that they went 1-15 with.
Youngie, do you remember when the Dolphins went 1-15 and that one win was against the Ravens?
Wasn't it in London too?
No, it was a Miami game. I remember.
Okay.
That was when Cam Cameron was the coach for the Dolphins. He was fired that very next.
Yeah, but he was an ex. They brought in the game, and Cam Cameron was an ex Ravens guy, and I know he was with the Steelers for a little bit too. So he probably had a little bit of revenge in his blood. Came out, but yeah, I was very frustrated. That was them Flacco years when we were just fucking. We would go 10-6 every season, or 8-8 to 10-6, but we were just like. I would watch the games and just like this team is fucking terrible.
I want to say that was the year before Flacco was drafted.
Fuck, you got me thinking back now. I don't even remember who Tyrod was our quarterback. Troy
sure
Smith.
Flacco.
Was Flacco drafted the same year as Matt Ryan?
Yes,
they were in the same draft.
So that's the Dolphins picked one that obviously because they were 1-15, and the Falcons picked number 2, and they got Matt Ryan.
Who'd you get with the number 1 pick that year?
Jake Long, left tackle.
Fantastic.
Actually, he was a top 2 left tackle for about 4 or 5 years. It wasn't terrible.
That's a good draft, though.
Fallen off a lot. That was a good draft. The other thing was Matt Ryan and Flacco came out of like Maryland and Boston College. It was some two no-name colleges, and everybody was like, I don't know. I think they're too high on this quarterback draft. It was kind of like this upcoming year, how we have Trevor Lawrence, and then like the guys after that, it's kind of a question mark. It's like, is it Justin Fields? Is it that dude from North Dakota State, Trey Lyles, who is a fucking baller, by the way? That dude is a beast.
Was that Flacco draft also the Patrick Willis, Adrian Peterson draft?
I think so. Calvin Johnson too. Calvin Johnson was in that draft too.
To be fair to the Dolphins, they went 11-5 the very next year, won the AFC East, and went to the playoffs.
Hey, but also,
wild card, baby.
Hey, I gotta touch on that draft one more time, just because your background is reminding me of it. The Browns with the 4th pick in that fucking draft pick Brady fucking Quinn. I just want to let that be known right now that the Browns picked Brady fucking Quinn in that draft.
Let's go.
So I'll let that. That's it for me on the Bengals. That's it.
All right.
Bengals.
Yeah, we're kind of going off track of the
Perfect
Bengals
transition.
and North. Yes. So next team will be the Browns, who had huge hype behind them. Probably the most hype Browns team has ever had or deserved to have. Yeah. And that was because of the additions of Odell. You throw that in with Jarvis Landry and Njoku. And then you have running backs. They had Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Chubb, who played very fucking well last year. He surprised a lot of people, and in some games actually, in fact, carried that team. But my God, that team last year was horribly coached. They had they literally had one of their star players take their helmet off and swing it at another dude's head and connect. There was attempted murder on the fucking field. There was no discipline.
Hey, I'm gonna just say, real quick, I think Mason Rudolph is a racist.
Yes.
So I'm not putting it past him that he said that. And if he said that, all power to Myles Garrett. He should have done what he did. Mm-hmm. That's all. That's all I'm gonna say on that. Go ahead, Goose.
But I'm fairly certain the Browns broke records on how many fucking penalties they had last year. They had next to none when it came to discipline. Just from top to bottom, the Browns organization year after year has to blow it up because they just keep making these terrible decisions. And I was so high on the Browns last year because of this man right here. I was really I loved his rookie year. He had a great rookie year. He looked like he was going to be a star in this league, and it's expected, I think, for a second-year player to come in and maybe have a down year compared to his rookie year because teams are going to have film. But the thing that I want to say about Baker Mayfield is that I really hope he doesn't become like the next Alex Smith, where he just keeps having these new coaches every year, new offensive coordinator, new system every year. The only thing that I will say that separates him is that there really is top-tier talent on that team. So if they can get it to work, that team will be really good. They added Jack Conklin from the Titans, who is a very big man. He plays with a lot of heart. He, I thought, fit very well with Taylor Lewan and that Titans offensive line, really getting Derrick Henry going. And then they ended up picking with the 10th pick in the draft, Jedrick Wills. So if you went back and watched a lot of the terrible highlights of Baker Mayfield last season, he looked very uncomfortable in the pocket because there really wasn't much of a pocket. So I can see them improving just from the standpoint of them giving him a lot more time. He's definitely on the smaller side of being a quarterback, so he can't be taking big hits like that. So I could understand why he'd be a little jittery. But I will say to all the people that hate Baker Mayfield, if you go and look up his name for 2019 highlights, tell me the last time that there was a Browns quarterback that could put together a 17-minute highlight reel on YouTube. Nobody else. Nobody. This man has superstar potential. Sometimes I can agree that his mentality, his attitude gets in the way, but I think he just needs to put it all together into being more motivated and focused on the game. I think sometimes he takes things a little bit too personally and it makes him a little bit too riled up. And let's not forget the Browns, they still have Myles Garrett on the defense who can literally murder somebody on the field. And Uh, fuck, I'm totally blanking because I'm getting too upset. What's the corner? Is it
Demarius Randall?
Marius Randall?
Fucking nasty.
Yeah, he's very good as well. I don't know, man. I think the Browns, they have the blueprint for being a good team. I just think it's coming at an unfortunate time when you have the Steelers, who are still very good, and then the Ravens, who are really stepping up to being a top tier team in the league. But like I said, I think this is a team that, in my opinion, will be the biggest improved team in the division and possibly in the league. I think just the two additions on the offensive line is going to make a huge difference. And I think getting a second year with Odell, letting him become more comfortable, getting some more work with Jarvis, I think it's going to benefit them. So, Youngie, what do you think about the Browns this year? And please try to be a little real about it. Don't try to hate on them too much.
So I think, honestly, this is one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. I think when you look at, who they have at each position, I think their secondary talent-wise is second or third best in the NFL. Like you said, they have Demarius Randall. They have Denzel Ward. They drafted Greedy Williams in the first round last year. I mean, that secondary is fucking nasty, and they're all within like the first 3 years of their career, and it's nasty now. So I can't imagine what it's going to look like in 4 years. Luckily for me as a Ravens fan, I don't have to worry about secondaries. The only thing I have to worry about is how your linebackers looking, because my quarterback can outrun them. So I'm not really worried about that as a Ravens fan, but I think they have a really, that's what stands out to the most to me about their team is that secondary. It is fucking good. But then you throw in Myles Garrett, and then I'ma just say it right now, potentially Yannick Ngakoue. I think the Browns are one of like 3-4 teams that I could really see him actually going to. So I think, if they land him, that's a game changer for the division. And I think, they go from here with the Steelers. I think, this is the Browns, this is the Steelers, and I think they go right here. You add Yannick to that defense, it's fucking nasty. The offense is really good too. Nick Chubb is a top 3 back in the NFL. Kareem Hunt still has it. And then you put Kareem Hunt in a third down role who, with what he was doing in Kansas City, a lot of that was like third down plays, but all 3 downs because of just the offense that they run. So I think he really fits that role. And then you have Odell and Jarvis. And then you have Austin Hooper, who they signed this year.
Yes, I forgot to mention.
But I do think at the end of the day, it's the Browns. And I just can't be like, yeah, the Browns are going to go 10-6 this year. I can't even be like, yeah, the Browns are going to go 8-8 this year. And, hey, I really like Kevin Stefanski. I really, really like him. Like, I think that was probably, out of all the coaches, maybe other than Thomas Rule, I think that was the best pickup of this offseason coach-wise. That Vikings offense was like potent last year. That was really something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With Kirk Cousins at the helm. That tells me something. Even
especially
if you have
a running based offense too, which fits what the Browns are doing.
So yeah.
Don't you think though the Browns, like we've talked about with the Kings, like Philanthropist always says, at some point you have to be good. Just pure luck. Something has to happen.
No, because this is the worst organization in sports, and it has been for 20 years. And at that point, it is really hard to shake off that name. And we all, we've seen it in 20 years. They had Hugh Jackson for how long? Like 8 years, and that dude was like he had Jeff Fisher's level record. Like that, it's just like I can see they make all the right moves as the organization. And because it's the Browns, it's still going to fall apart because it's the Browns. And I mean, like one thing I think they need to fix that would help the team. Look behind you, bro. Look at that fucking jersey. That shit is shit. That is ugly as fuck. It is
gonna help them.
it is not doing it for me.
Hey, they
bro.
changed it back, bro. They have the classic unis now.
Okay, that's not doing it for me either. Them Peyton Hillis ass unis, ugly as
No,
fuck.
no. Like the 50s, like the championship ones.
All right, well we'll see. We'll see. The last
like
time
the
they
Jim
won
Brown
the championship was
the
in
Jim
the
Brown
50s.
joints.
That's crazy. We'll see. But I think that like They just need to do like an organization overhaul. Like we're gonna get new jerseys, we're gonna get a new stadium, we're gonna get new practice facilities. We're gonna shake off this Browns name and finally make something of ourselves. I think they more need that because, like,
You're saying a name change too?
I mean,
He's going Madden GM here.
I'm going full mode, bro. I mean, how am I gonna respect you as a team when the color is shit? Like,
you can't even see him.
I don't care. But you're never gonna be better than shit, bro. Your name is literally shit. It might as well be the Cleveland Shits. Okay.
Cleveland Muds.
Hey, I fuck with that.
Exactly. But like I liked Freddie Kitchens last year, and don't get me wrong, he did really no. Like before he became the head coach, he was the worst head coach in football last year, far and above everybody else.
Okay,
not even close.
Okay,
but
you almost got me.
I really liked him before the season started, but what happened was he got caught up in that Brown shit, and now you're not getting out of it. The other thing I see with the Browns too, and I see this year in and year out, they always have some sort of fucking drama going on in camp. This year, it's Njoku doesn't want to be there anymore, but they're not willing to trade him for less than a first. Nobody's gonna give a fucking first for Njoku, so
Nobody.
he's out here throwing a fucking fit. Well, that hurts the team. And then, like, I love Odell. Don't get me wrong; he's an amazing player, one of the best receivers in the NFL. But he brings a lot of that baggage with him. And when you're a team like the Cleveland Browns, who has had consistent like fucking terribleness over a 20-year period, more than that, just absolute awful. It's like you bring in guys like that, and what does it bring to your organization? Odell is probably one of the most talented receivers in the NFL, but at the same time, he brings that baggage, and when you're a team like the Browns, you don't want that baggage. You want anything but that baggage. And then every year it's something new. Like last year it was Odell, and now people are still like talking about Odell potentially getting traded. It's still something that's been talked about, I know, pretty frequently. Just like NFL Network and different stories, The Athletic, ESPN, whatever. But I've definitely still seen stuff about that. And just that, like, just the media attention they get because they're so shit, the media attention they get when they improve their team hurts their team. And I think that was something that really hurt them last year. And I think we're going to kind of see the Bucs do the same thing this year, but not to that extent because they have Bruce Arians, who is a top coach in the NFL. But like we're going to see the Bucs, who are Super Bowl favorites for some people, and they're going to come out and go 9-7, 10-6, and get that 7 or 6 seed, and people are going to be like, "Well, what the fuck?" But it's like it's the same thing as the Browns last year. They have all this hype coming into the season. It's just hard to match that. It's hard to match when you come into the season and somebody thinks you're a Super Bowl favorite.
Youngie, so I'm imagining that you would agree with the Adam Gase mentality where if you sucked ass, he would threaten trading you to the Browns.
Yes. It's not even like, because I think the Browns, the Browns are where you go to kill your career off, and it sucks. Like I feel bad for Baker Mayfield. He was the number 1 pick, and where you get drafted to, the Browns. And you know, they made all the right moves last season. Don't even tell me they didn't. Like they were one of the most, on paper, they were one of the most talented rosters in the league last year, and they only improved this year. But again, what did they go last year? 5-11, 6-10. It's like what? I can't come to expect anything more than 8-8 out of the Browns. Like to their highest potential, their ceiling to me is 8-8.
Hey, Youngie. Also, I did want to bring up another player that I know you're going to be somewhat familiar with that they did pick up, and that's Grant Delpit. Can you tell us anything about him?
I really like Grant Delpit. I thought he was a first-round pick. Before this last year started, he was one of the most highly touted secondary players in the draft. He kind of had a down year, or I don't know if it was a senior or his junior year, but whatever this last year was. But the other thing with Grant Delpit was I kind of saw in the LSU games, people were like, oh, yeah, he's having a down year. Well, when the offense gets the ball and scores in a minute of having the fucking ball, I can't really get mad at the defense for giving up 24 points a game. Like, I just can't. Because if the time of possession, even if you won the game 57-24, if the time of possession is 40-20, your defense is going to give up some plays. Like, that's just going to happen. But if your offense is as potent as LSU's was last year, which it was something, it's just going to be that we're going to win 57-24, but substantially lose the possession battle.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty big deal that, they, like you were saying, they already had a very solid secondary, and then you throw him in there.
Mm-hmm.
They're setting up a very good defense, a very young, good defense. Philanthropist, what do you got to say about the Browns?
The Browns, I really think they have a good roster, honestly. Like they're stacked, but kind of like what Ethan was saying, that they just find a way to make the wrong moves somehow. Like you can see it too. I mean, you got to think about this, man. They go 1-15 with Hugh Jackson, right? He says, "I'll jump into Lake Erie if we do worse next year." You know what happens? They go 0-16. You can't make this up. They're on Hard Knocks, and he brings Baker Mayfield into a room to congratulate him on winning the backup job.
Yeah, it was a fucking joke. It was honestly a fucking joke.
So they fire Hugh Jackson. They make the right call, right? They have this really talented team. They're under Greg Williams. They improve. And I'm not even saying Greg Williams is good, but he's a competent coach. And they improve and they end whatever it was, 7-9, 8-8. They go into the next offseason and they have all these options and they get Freddie Kitchens. Something goes wrong.
Hey,
Something always goes wrong.
Freddie Kitchens was really highly touted in the NFL before last season. Now, he had never had a head coaching position, but he was really highly touted in the NFL. A lot of players talked him up. I know from experience just watching them CBS games, Tony Romo was talking that ass up every fucking week. But again,
be that as it may, you got to evaluate it as behind the scenes. You got to have a good scouting department that can tell if this coach is good or not. And they gaffed again, and John Dorsey lost his job because of it.
You think Tony Romo thought Jason Garrett was a good coach?
Fuck
probably.
No.
Let him play.
Let him play.
I was just going to say, at the end of the day, they got the hardest part done, and the hardest part is getting good players. They have a really talented team. I like the coaching hire, like Ethan said, and, this will be a make or break year for Baker and for the whole roster too. I think if they come out and they have another stinker, you got to really look at going through a rebuild again. But me personally, I'm high on them. I have them at second in the division. Personally, I just like them more than the Steelers currently. Everywhere, every single position except for coach. Obviously Mike Tomlin's a better coach, but other than that, I'm with the Browns.
I gotta take a drink.
Ethan's gonna try and tell you that Mike Tomlin's a bad coach. Please don't listen to him. He needs to stop it.
I need water. Help me.
It's not even that. This is a good transition to the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get into the Steelers.
I wanna make love in this club.
Okay.
All right, so the Steelers, they last year spent a first-round pick on Minkah Fitzpatrick, which turned out to be a pretty damn good move.
Good investment.
Unfortunately, I was pretty upset about that, but it is what it is. Got a first-round pick in return. I will say some of those interceptions, they were handed right to him. So
you still got to be there to catch a ball.
Yeah, that's
Some
true.
people don't.
Okay. It gets in the air. Anybody can be there, but okay. Anyways, then you have Big Ben Roethlisberger on his way back, seeing what he can do. We never know what he's gonna do. Literally, you never know what he's gonna do. And then their first pick in the draft, they did bring in that big boy Chase Claypool. He was. I didn't really hear much about him during the college season, but he did really shine throughout the combine. And I think when you throw him in with Juju and an experienced quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger and a great coach like Mike Tomlin, he can play very solid. And then they also picked up, which I thought was a pretty solid move, they got Eric Ebron. And of course, they have a fucking nasty defense along to go with Minkah. They have TJ Watt. And then the whole, it's just the Steelers are always good on defense. That's their bread and butter. That's what they're fucking known for. So, Young E, what do you have to say about the Steelers this year? Do you see them getting worse or do you see them improving?
They're going to improve. I just think that, and let me get this straight from the beginning. The Steelers, other than the Patriots, are probably my least favorite team in football. But I have to admit, they probably have the best coach that's not Bill Belichick in the NFL. And I love John Harbaugh to death. I do. But Mike Tomlin is a better coach than John Harbaugh. I
like that.
He just brings more to the table. Okay. And that is after he tried to trip to Jacoby Jones. I'm never going to forget about that fucking play. It was the dumbest fucking thing I've ever fucking seen a coach do. But
it was hard.
He was doing what he could to get his team a dub.
He said, I'm going to intervene.
Now, the other thing I respect about the Steelers, I know Jordan said something about defense always being their bread and butter. There was a couple years there where their defense was shit. But they had Le'Veon and Big Ben and Antonio Brown, and they got that shit done. And that just shows me the versatility of Mike Tomlin. This dude can have any team in front of him, and he could get it done. And with 7 teams in the playoffs now, this is a team that is going to be in the playoffs every year as long as he is there. And I just think that. Now, the other thing I want to say, and this is why I had to take a drink when Phil was talking, this is the best defense in football. I don't want to fucking hear it about the Browns. This is the best defense in football. Hands fucking down. I don't care what you have to say. This is the best defense in football. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Joe Hayden last year had some of the best years. Joe Hayden, who is like 36, had one of the best years of his fucking career. And then you have Minkah, you have TJ Watt, you have Bud Dupree. They're only improving. This team is so deep on the defensive side. I think they are number one. I think it's close. Don't get me wrong. I think 1 through 4 is very close and it's interchangeable. But I think this is the best defense in football. I'm not a huge Big Ben fan. I think we might get 4 or 5 games out of him this year, but that's enough. That's all they really need out of Big Ben. Plays 5 games and they go 3-2. They're making the playoffs. Whether they got Mason Rudolph, fucking Duck Hodges, they could have fucking Jamarcus Russell back there. I don't fucking care. They're making the fucking playoffs.
Relax.
So, Chase Claypool. I like Chase Claypool. I saw a lot of him in a lot of his film because he, as a receiver, I know the Ravens were looking at receiver. It was one of the positions that we were looking at in the draft.
Scouting him at the scouting combine?
Yeah.
Were you there with the pen and paper?
No, I just want to make this clear. Everybody swears I'm in the war room. I subscribed to Baltimore Ravens Insider like 3 years ago. I read every single story that they put out. And usually, like, before the draft, they will every week put out, like, 5 or 10 players that the team is interested in or, like, in the positions that they're looking for in the draft, and I'll take a look at them. But Chase Claypool was someone who I saw some film out of last year. He didn't have the best stats, but he brings a lot to the table. I think Juju needs that help because Juju is not a number 1 wide receiver. I don't think Chase Claypool is a number 1 wide receiver either, but they could definitely – improve on that side of the ball. He's better than James Washington, who I like James Washington, but dude's a slot. And then, I just, their offense is poor. It's poor at best. Yeah. James Conner, I think, is a bottom 10 running back in the league, and no disrespect to him. I love his story. And, when he's on. But how often is he on? Like 1 in every 3 weeks, and I can't have that out of a backfield.
Right.
Backing up him, who the fuck knows? And he hasn't been all that healthy either. They don't have a backup back, which is like this year when I saw them going into the draft, I thought their biggest need was a backup back. Because like we remember when they had Le'Veon, D'Angelo Williams would come in and put up 40 fucking fantasy points. Like I remember that. And like I think they needed to fill that position and they didn't. So I think it's going to hurt them a little bit.
They did draft a running back in the 4th round.
Okay, but the 4th round. And who was it?
Anthony McFarland, running back, Maryland.
Okay.
Ain't that the dude who run Family Guy?
Hey, I'll respect any running back pick. If it's a 4th round, like with running backs, you really never know, especially when they're from a small school like Maryland. You never really know. Like I remember when the Ravens picked Ray Rice, I was like, this dude's out of Rutgers. What the fuck is he going to bring to the field? And then like we saw him like 3 seasons down the road put up 2,000 scrimmage yards and then beat the fuck out of his wife in an elevator the next season, and then he never played again, which rightfully so. Hopefully he doesn't ever get back on the field. But
I think you're sleeping on Eric Ebron being the next Dwayne Allen.
Hey, and don't get me wrong, Eric Ebron carried me to a fantasy championship 2 years ago. He's actually good. Like I think with the Lions, he just wasn't a good fit. But when they moved him to the Colts, I think he fit a little bit better. And I think a thing that benefits the Steelers is they have another tight end to play opposite of him. And I think that's what helped him when he was with the Colts is he had what's his name, Jack Doyle to play opposite of him. He comes to the Steelers and he has Jesse James to play
Yo,
opposite.
Ebron was nice on the Colts, dude.
Yeah,
He had 12 touchdowns or something crazy like
he
that.
was a big red zone threat, but he has to have another tight end that can beat the vertical threat because he's not.
Right.
He's just not. He's just a possession guy. So they have Jesse James, who is that vertical threat, and I like that. But I just think their coach and their defense is too good for them to not go 9-7 and get that 7 or 6 seed. I just think they're too good.
Youngie, I want to let you know right now, my biggest goal with this podcast, this show, is one day I hope to have Mike Tomlin on, and I want you to grill him about the tripping incident.
Bro, it's to this day it makes me mad, and like that's just one of the things that kind of contributes to my hate to the Steelers. I'll give a little background. The way I became a Ravens fan was in like all my teams are Arizona except for football. Because in like 4th or 5th grade, you know, the Steelers and the Cardinals played in the Super Bowl. And I went to school in my Cardinals gear, and everyone was like, you fucking bandwagon. You're a bandwagon. Bandwagon. And I just got so like discouraged and disheartened. Like I was just so sad about it. I just picked a new team. And when the Steelers won the Super Bowl, I remember being really fucking upset. And I was like, you know what? Who's their biggest rival? And that's going to become my team. And it was the Ravens. So ever since then, the Ravens have been my team.
Is that the Kyle Bowler led Ravens at the time?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was Kyle Bowler. And then the next year, we brought in Troy Smith, who was a Heisman and never panned out to anything. Then we brought in Joe Flacco and Tyrod Taylor, and we had a good quarterback room for a bit. But, you know, no, not elite. Another thing I want to say is Joe Flacco was never elite. He had the one good playoffs. It was like a fucking magic run. I don't even know what fucking happened.
Yeah, he pulled a Eli.
No, the hand of God reached down and touched him and said, this is your playoffs. Ray Lewis is retiring. This is your playoffs.
Fucking
and
P.I.
Okay, I don't want to hear it.
Dear
No,
antler spray.
no, I don't want to hear it. But like, I just think at the end of the day, the Steelers defense and their coach is just too good to not win games. And, you know, whether Ben Roethlisberger plays 3 games, whether he plays 6 games, when he comes out, and I hate to say it because I really don't fucking like him, and I kind of agree with Phil, I wouldn't be too sad if tomorrow somebody was like, Ben Roethlisberger got corona and is in the hospital.
Help me. I
But,
need
you know, like he had that at the beginning of the career, and I don't think he's ever addressed it properly. And I think if that happened nowadays, like he would definitely not be on an NFL team. It was just the time that kind of benefited him, which I don't like. But aside from that, he is a decent quarterback and can come out and whether it's 60 passes in a week, he can throw 400 yards and just get fucking rocked the whole game. They've never had to build their offensive line one single season because this dude just gets fucking eaten up, and he can come out and play 3 games, and it's enough for them to go 9-7 at the end of the year and clinch that 7 seed.
You know how like Cam would never get calls, like getting hit in the head and shit.
Oh yeah,
it would always be like that with Ben.
Okay,
too.
but that's okay because he raped somebody, so I don't. I'm not upset about that.
All right, Philanthropist.
Go ahead, Phil.
What do you think about the Steelers this year?
So, you know, the defense is really good. Don't get me wrong, but they be giving up points, bro. Like they give up 20 plus consistently.
Okay, but last year, like you have Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph at the helm, who are possessing the ball 30% of the time during games, if that. Like
well,
I think if you look
just
at
told me they
could
win. You just told me they can go 9-7 with Troy Smith.
They could.
So what's wrong with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph?
Well, what did they do last year? They went 9-7 with Mason Rudolph and fucking Duck Hodges.
All right, that's a good point. But basically, what I'm saying though is that with their disadvantages on the offensive side of the ball, And with what the Browns have on their offensive side of the ball being clearly superior, I just think the Browns have a chance to go for number 2. And you know what, Big Ben, take away all the things we don't like about him off the field. I just don't believe in him at age whatever he is now, 41, coming off a season-ending elbow injury.
Bro, I can't say that.
I
Every
mean-
year I say that, he comes out and through 5 games he has 2,000 yards, and I'm like,
Sure.
what the fuck?
Sure,
Every year,
but-
he looks like he's had too much Taco Bell.
yeah,
That's
he's
just
fat.
his life.
He's a
Yeah.
fat rapist, just a big fat rape boy.
Okay, I'm gonna step away while you talk. I can't be here for this.
All right, continue.
He just look. I'm not a fan of the Steelers this year, bro. I think it's time for them to revamp some things. Like Ethan said, James Conner, great fantasy pickup, but real life running back, not too hot last year. I don't like their receiving core outside of Juju. Their tight ends, they got a little bit better with Ebron, but I just don't see much threats in their offensive game for them to move the ball down the field like they used to. So I think they're going to struggle, claw, and fight their way to 8-8 and 9-7, but I don't think that's going to be good enough for a playoff spot this year.
Yeah, and I think what it comes down to between the Steelers and the Browns is kind of what we were talking about a little bit with the image. I think it's a big deal with expectations in the NFL because those players, they really fit into that mold, especially the Steelers, right? When you're a Steelers player, you're expected to be some of the toughest players in the league.
Yeah.
No matter how shit that team is. So I think what I could see, the Browns coming in and playing a little bit better, having the better roster. But I think at the end of the day, Browns are going to be Browns. Steelers are going to be the Steelers. I think it will be close. And I think what it's really going to come down to is how much this man over my shoulder improves. Because if he can't step in, he's the leader that the Browns need. I don't think they go anywhere. But I don't know. I think I'm going to say I think Baker Mayfield has the potential this season to be the second best, but you never know with Big Ben, like we were just saying.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good competitive division all the way around. And if you wanted to say one last thing, Youngie, about the Steelers before we jump into your team.
I was just going to say between the Browns and the Steelers, I think at the end of the season, it'll for sure be within one game.
Yeah.
It'll be one game separating those two teams.
I can see that as well.
Yeah, and then the Bengals are going to be 4-12.
Probably 4-12 to 6-10. I'm giving the AFC North the benefit of the doubt this year, just because we're playing the NFC East. So I think all of our teams are going to have at least a 6-10 record.
Don't sleep on Dak.
Shut up. Shut up.
I'm playing.
Speaking of Dak, it's just the thing with the Steelers. It's kind of like the Cowboys. Even when they're asked, they're still finishing the season like 7-9, 8-8.
Yeah.
Like it's just the way the mentality and the expectations are for those teams. I think that's what's going to take the Steelers to be maybe slightly better than the Browns. But let's go ahead and jump into the team that had huge Super Bowl aspirations, kind of looked a little too forward, messed up against the Titans, have the MVP. And that is the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson has that killer mentality. Maybe having that playoff loss against the Titans will be a lesson learned to not just focus on the Chiefs. You need to take it week by week, and all the best veterans know that. So the Ravens, the biggest moves that they've made, they traded Hayden Hurst. Actually got a pretty good damn return in for him. They drafted Patrick Queen in the first round. I thought that was a good pickup, and one of the best steals of the draft. They got J.K. Dobbins, and then they also picked up Calais Campbell. So Young E, I'll let you go ahead. Obviously, it's going to be hard for the Ravens to improve upon what they did last year, but do you see improvement, or do you see, be real, do you see maybe a small drop-off at all?
No bias. I think this team is going to improve just because last year they were so young. That's just what it comes down to for me. When you look at the offense, when you look at the defense, majority of them are within the first 5 years of their career. And that, when you come to the playoffs, is going to hurt you. Like I'll just go on a list of some of like our best players. You have Marlon Humphrey, Ronnie Stanley, Orlando Brown Jr., Lamar Jackson, obviously, and then you have Miles Boykin and Marquise Brown playing receiver last year. All of those guys are within the first 3 years of their career. So I think that was something that has hurt them the last 2 years. I'm kind of getting tired of the Lamar slander after he won MVP and took his big giant step forward last year. And nobody's going to tell me he didn't take a big step forward last year. He definitely did. So I think people are getting on him too quick about the 2 playoff losses. A lot of people don't consider he played 6 games in that first season, and at the time they were in like 9th, 10th in the fucking AFC, and he led them back to the playoffs. That's a big deal when you're getting 6 games as a rookie. Mm-hmm. And then, the Chargers that year were a tough team. Derwin James was a fucking all-pro in his rookie year. And then you had Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram just eating it on that defense. Like, I didn't think when we went into the Chargers game last year, I didn't think we were going to win. So when we didn't, I wasn't necessarily surprised. This year with the Titans, I think it's exactly what Jordan said. They got a little bit ahead of themselves, started thinking about the Chiefs, and all of a sudden, into the first quarter, it's like 20-0. Derrick Henry already has 150 yards. And that, I think last year that was one of our big downfalls, was the rush defense. And I think this year they did everything that they possibly could to improve it. They went and got Calais Campbell. They got Derek Wolfe too, who I think, Derek Wolfe is an amazing player. Like, he's not, a top tier defensive lineman by any means, but he brings that playoff salve that the Ravens really needed last year. Derek Wolfe has won a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning, went to 2 with that Broncos team. So I think he brings some playoff salve that they need. And one of the things I've really noticed throughout this offseason and training camp, as I've, kept up on the articles and the videos and everything, this locker room is really tightly knit. It is, I think, probably the closest locker room in football, just from what I've seen. We all know how close they were all last year. And then, you bring in Walter Payton Man of the Year this year and Calais Campbell, it only improves. And that's kind of where we get to this AB conversation where I'm like, I don't necessarily want AB or Dez on my team because of the baggage they bring, but we're not the Browns. That baggage doesn't carry the same weight on the Ravens as it would on like the Browns. There's just something about the locker room there. So I think the Ravens, they definitely have an opportunity to improve this year, just position wise. Miles Boykin coming into his second year, I'm pretty high on him. I think he has a lot of opportunity. And I also want to say, I think the Ravens had far and above the best draft in football this year. Patrick Queen, fantastic, perfect fit for the defense. Really improves that rush defense that they needed to improve last year. And then, they went out and got J.K. Dobbins as a steal late in the second round, who is our 4th back in the backfield, but they all serve their purpose. And the other thing is, too, that a lot of people don't realize is Gus Edwards and Mark Ingram have 1 year left after this year. So the Ravens are kind of, what I really like about the Ravens is we've always had an elite GM. If there's anything on the Ravens that's elite, it's the GM. And when Ozzie Newsome stepped down, you bring in his assistant GM for the last 10 years of Eric DeCosta, who has greatly filled the role of Ozzie Newsome. But like the draft was ridiculous to me because they get J.K. Dobbins at 57, which is just like, he was on some big boards a first round pick. So, and most people, I would say most analysts considered him to be the best back in the class. So that's a big pickup for them, and it really helps their future. I think he has potential of, taking over that number 1 role. Maybe not this year, but next year, because, Gus will be on his way out. Mark Ingram will be having 1 year left on his contract, and kind of, Ingram he's not old, but he's nearing the end for a running back. And, a little bit about Mark Ingram, too. He brings something to the team that I don't think anybody else in the NFL can bring.
Big trust.
He just brings some sort of swagger, And then when you throw Marcus Peters on that team too, it's like ridiculous because those, in my opinion, those are the two swaggiest guys in the NFL. They just bring it. They bring that energy. They are always having fun. Exactly. There's a whole lot of trust there. So I just see the young guys really starting to take a step forward, and then you bring in Calais Campbell, who, you know, fills that position where I think we were weak last year, and then you bring in Patrick Queen as well. And then, like, you know, some late round picks we got. I really like Devin Duvernay and James Prochet. Devin Duvernay was a 3rd round pick. You know, we're really looking at filling that slot receiver position. You know, because they've really been adamant about Marquise Brown staying on the outside and just being that burner. And then kind of figuring out the big possession guy on the other side, and then bringing in a slot and then running that with Mark Andrews, who, you know, we're going to have to end up paying here pretty soon. He's a pretty fucking good tight end. I would say he's the 3rd best in the NFL, but 4th best because you got Zach Ertz up there too. But I think, you know, he's definitely up there in that top 6, 7. But it's really just up to your opinion. I will say I'm a little bit biased putting him at 4th, but you know, I just think they've done the right moves to improve the team and kind of go forward and you know, take a step forward this year. I don't want to get too ahead of myself saying they're going to go 14-2 or better, but I definitely think the potential is there. Just I think the biggest part for us is we're playing the NFC East this year, and coming off of a year where we played the NFC West and we dealt with the Niners and we dealt with the Seahawks and the Rams, and that, I mean, that whole division is just so deep. All 4 of those teams are playoff contenders, in my opinion.
Yep.
So I think that was really tough for us last year, and we went 4-0 through that division. But I just think, you know, they've made the right moves to continue to improve, and I think my biggest thing is Calais Campbell. I really do. He is still that guy. I know he's a little bit older, but he still brings that guy mentality to the team. I still think he's someone who could compete for Defensive Player of the Year at, you know, he's 31, 32. I still think he's playing at that level. And I also think he brings in that experience that, you know, we have a very young defensive line. We got 2 rookies on the defensive line this year. That's necessary, having a guy like Calais Campbell in there. So I can't say any more about Calais Campbell's pickup. That was my favorite move of the offseason. And who knows? I'm not going to bank on it, but there's a possibility we could see Yannick. I know, you know, they tried to trade for him last season. I don't know how the cap space would work out. But I just think this team is young and all the players are gaining that experience. And I think, you know, they have to take a step forward this year. They have to win a playoff game. And even after winning MVP, you see Lamar with the chip on his shoulder because he hasn't won a playoff game. So I think that only helps the Ravens. And, you know, hard to say. They're the 2nd best coach team in the division. I think if you take the entire coaching staff, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, everybody, I think they're probably the best coach team in football. But when it comes down to head coach, as much as I love John Harbaugh, he's probably in the 3 to 5 range for that. He's not Bill Belichick and he's not Mike Tomlin.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. What do you think, Philanthropist, about what the Ravens are going to do this year?
You know, I'm looking at this roster, man, and it just looks terrible to me. I'm really thinking they're going to go 2-4. No, I'm playing. I'm playing. I wanted to get Ethan going a little bit, but nah, this team is great. Great coach, fantastic roster on both ends now. Top 2 quarterback, top 3 quarterback, depending on how you want to slice it up. I can see them. I would say they're probably the favorite for the Super Bowl just because I feel like the road in the AFC is a lot easier now, especially with Tom Brady gone. So, you know, I'm saying
Cam.
No.
Sorry, but no. I'm saying, like, I'd be surprised, very surprised, especially with the schedule, if they won less than 13 games. And I don't really have much to add that Ethan already did. And I think their roster and their additions this offseason have been spectacular. So it's going to be a good year for Ethan.
I'm going to say I think it'll be very hard for them to go 14-2 again. They're going to have a big target on their back. You have the MVP, of course, they're Super Bowl contenders. But I think the biggest thing for me is, yes, they're going to have a little bit of an easier schedule with the NFC East. But my biggest thing is that this AFC North is going to be improved. So whereas they lost, was it one division game last year?
To the Browns.
Yeah, it was to the Browns. I don't see that happening again. Just, maybe Joe Burrow comes out and has a great game. Fucking knows. I think they'll sweep the Bengals, but Browns could definitely take one again. The Steelers, of course, can take one. And then, just another team. So I can see potentially for the Ravens. And then, there's the COVID shit. You don't know how that's going to go and all that. I could see them going 12-4, possibly like an 11-5, but I just really don't see them getting second place in the division. They're still going to win the division. I think the biggest thing that will hurt the Ravens this year is now that it's only the number one seed that's getting the bye. I think that's going to hurt them but they still could, of course, get that one seed. So I just think that's going to be the only disadvantage for them this season. I would like to see, Lamar. I'm not saying he throws bad like some people do, but I still do need to see some improvement from that standpoint. Of course, he's going to make the big plays. He has the right head on his shoulders. He's a great fucking leader. He has all the charisma in the world. I root for him, even though it makes me upset that young E gets to cheer on Sundays and I don't. But, he's still going to be a great football player for years to come. I just don't see them doing the same 14-2 magic again. It's going to be really hard to replicate. You hardly ever see that a team go 14-2 back-to-back seasons. So just, from like a realistic standpoint, obviously they improved their defense a little bit. I just see them going 12-4. That's my real pick, but I could see them definitely going like 11-5. Let's say, the Bengals, Browns, and Steelers all take a game when they split them. But I don't know. It's interesting to see. The NFC East teams could be improved as well. The Eagles add pieces. The Cowboys added some pieces.
Relax.
Team
Relax.
Well coached. Hey, I'm just saying. And then, don't get me started about the Giants, bro. That's a great team right there.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
Danny Dimes.
Hey, did y'all see that Joe Judge was making all the players fucking run laps if they were making mistakes?
Hey,
give me a break.
I did also see this week that Danny Dimes put on another like 20 pounds of muscle this year.
Oh,
and I know,
telling you,
like I'm not gonna lie to you. Like we're gonna get off track from the AFC North here, and I think NFC East was one of the first divisions we did because of the name change with Washington. I think Danny Dimes has big potential, big time potential. And I think one thing that helps him is every single fucking analyst was hating on the New York Giants when they picked Danny Dimes.
Yep.
And now he's got that chip on his shoulder, kind of like Lamar did. A lot of people when the Ravens picked Lamar at 32, it was like a lot of people were like, well, what are you going to do? Put him at running back? Put him at receiver? Like, what are you going to do? He's not that position. And it gave him that chip on his shoulder to kind of improve throughout the season and really take over games. And that, chip has stayed up until last year where he won the MVP, obviously. And I think Daniel Jones definitely has that chip on his shoulder where, like, people are like, he didn't deserve to be the number 8 pick. Well, I think from what I saw last year, he did deserve to be, up in that top 10. But I'm going to also say Drew Lock got picked in the 3rd round last year, and he deserved to be top 10 too. So it's kind of just like how you want to take it. But I think Daniel Jones has a bunch of potential, and that dude's going to be fucking good. But I'm not worried about the NFC East by any means. I'm just not.
I'm just saying there's definitely improvements in the NFC East, it's not as bad as you're saying the schedule. Like, it's not as easy, I don't think. I think, you know what I'm saying? I don't think you're not taking in Daniel Jones possibly improving a little bit into consideration.
No, I am. But I'm going to be real with you. Like, they're going to have 2 losing teams and then a team that's 9-7 or 8-8. So two teams that have losing records and then a team that's 9-7 or 8-8. And whether that's the Cowboys or the Eagles, it's a coin flip, before the season, because who the fuck knows. But I just think I'm not too worried about the NFC East. I think that the NFC East is a year or two away from being like one of the really good divisions of football.
Yeah.
And what's going to be weird about that is when the NFC East becomes one of the better divisions of football, the Cowboys are going to be the worst team in the NFC East. And that's going to be fucking weird for people. But
Yeah.
I respect it. Like, the other teams have done what they're supposed to do in a rebuild and actually rebuilt. And they've done a really good job of it. The Giants are one of, what would you call it? I can't think of the word, but like the model for rebuilding. I really think they are, because, they went out and got Saquon, who was like their first. And then that year they really improved on the offensive line. And then they got Daniel Jones last year, and they improved the receivers a little bit and, his supporting cast. And then this year they go out and get another offensive lineman. So I just think they're making the right moves to build that team. But at the end of the day, I just don't think it's going to be too much of a problem for the AFC North to run through the NFC East. I just don't.
And I agree, to an extent. I'm just saying, I just don't believe the Ravens will go 14-2 again. It'll probably be around 12-4, 11-5. Stronger AFC North, potential improvement in the NFC East, bigger target on their back. People are going to be playing harder against them. And you got to take into consideration, too, that Baltimore is one of the best home field advantages in the NFL. When that place is rocking, and if there's not going to be fans in there, that could change the games. We're seeing that right now in the NBA.
Yeah, so that's fair.
I'm just putting all those things in. I'm not saying that this team's not a Super Bowl contender. I think they very much well are. And I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson is ass. I'm just saying I just think it's going to be really hard to replicate that magical season again.
Hey, my biggest thing this year, this is the first time Lamar is seeing Kansas City in Baltimore. And I don't care if fans or not, that is something.
Yeah.
Three games for Lamar in Kansas City. And I will say Kansas City is one or two in the hardest places to play in the NFL. Was
easily, yeah.
You swap that with Seattle. I think they're an interchangeable one or two. So I think that makes a big difference. But we'll kind of see. What I like about that is it gives us potential to actually win that Chiefs game. I think a lot of what I've seen the last 3 games we played against the Chiefs is when it comes down to it, that home field advantage is really just taking over, and it just doesn't, kind of puts us at a huge disadvantage. So I think without having those fans or, playing in Baltimore, it's going to make a difference in that game. And I think obviously in the regular season, that's the biggest game of the year. It's not the Patriots anymore. It's not the Steelers anymore. It's how are we going to handle the Chiefs in the regular season? Are we going to win that game? Are we going to lose on a heartbreaker when Patrick Mahomes extends a play for 15 seconds, rolls out to the right, fucking closes his eyes, throws the ball 60 yards downfield, somebody trips, and somehow Tyreek Hill gets open? It happens because it's Mahomes, but it's really going to come down to that for me. If we win that game, if at the end of 3 weeks we're 3-0, at that point I'm thinking there is actual potential for a 16-0 season. But we got to get through the Chiefs first.
Definitely. I don't know. 16-0 is just tough. So
it is tough.
I'm not going to say
it is, but I think there's potential there for it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's going to happen by any means, but if they beat the Chiefs, I'm going to give it like a 40% chance. Right now, I'd say like 12 at best, 12% chance to go 16-0. But they beat the Chiefs, they are substantially improving that because, I could see them running through the AFC North. But I could also see the Browns giving them a game like they did last year, where they just dominated from the beginning of the game. I can also see the Steelers defense really putting up a big game. I know we had a game with the Steelers last year that was like 13-17, something like that. And the Steelers defense has scored all the points. So, there's always potential with that with the Steelers where their defense alone can put up 13 points. So we'll just have to see, but I think there's potential there for one of the best seasons ever.
All right. I respect it. Philanthropist, you got anything more to say about the Ravens before we move on to hot takes?
No, I think the Ravens are good. Not much else to say.
I think they are great, and I am excited to see them play this year. I just think it's going to be very hard to replicate that 14-2, but definitely Super Bowl contenders. And it's just hard to go back-to-back with any team. So I could definitely see them jumping up and getting to the Super Bowl this year because, like I said, it's hard to go back-to-back. Chiefs, great fucking team, best quarterback that we've seen in a while, but it might be Lamar Jackson's time. Now let's jump into we're at an hour and 45. Great podcast. I'm liking the way that we're flowing through this. So we'll go ahead and just jump right into the hot takes. Is that cool with you guys?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right.
I wanna make love in this club.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just go first with my hot take, and it involves the man over my shoulder right here. Okay. In my hot take, and I'm going to see a big improvement from him. I think the addition of Kevin, is it Stefanski? Is that how you say his last name?
I think so. Something like that.
I think adding a competent coach, and then you throw in how well he did with Dalvin Cook as his main back, and now you're going to have Chubb with Kareem Hunt. I think that's going to add a special dynamic. I think having Odell be there for an extra year, along with Jarvis having a full offseason to work out. They've probably been working out even more because of COVID. And then I think Odell's been working out with Drake. Like, Drake has probably taught him some more routes.
Drake?
Drake. To that, I'm going to drink.
Oh, man. So my hot take is going to be that I believe it'll come into the last 4 weeks. The Browns will be competing with the Ravens for that one spot. I do not think they'll get it. Let's calm down. Okay. But I think they're going to have an improvement of a season. They're going to do better than the Steelers are. And it's all going to depend on Baker Mayfield. He's going to throw over 4,000 yards. He's going to get over 30 touchdowns.
Whoa.
His rookie year, he got 28. So I could see 30. Okay. He might have 10 to 15 picks, maybe 20. Okay. But he's going to have 30 tubs, and he's going to lead them to a lot of wins. Because the biggest thing that I seen with him last year, like I was saying earlier, is that there really was no pocket. And with him being a smaller quarterback, and he's definitely not the fastest on the field, that hurts him a lot. There'd be a lot of throws, especially his interceptions. His fucking footwork would be shit because he just wouldn't know how to handle that pressure. When you're coming from you came from Oklahoma, correct?
Mm-hmm.
One of the best college programs, and he had a lot of time back there, and all the players are a lot slower. It's going to take.
And you play in the shitty ass Big 12.
Yeah, so it's going to be a big adjustment, especially playing a division like the AFC North. It's going to take some time. I really hope he doesn't end up being the next Alex Smith with having to have new coaches every year. But the talent is there. I think he can put it all together. So my hot take is I'm going all in on Baker Mayfield. And by all in, I mean he's going to get second place in the AFC North. And he's going to be one of the most improved players this year. And I'm excited to see him. I just think he is superstar material. He makes nothing. Like, he makes something out of nothing, was I meant to say. He's just one of those guys where it's like football's natural to him. Now, we know sometimes that's not, there needs to be a little bit more there sometimes, but he's one of those guys that's special like that. You could throw him on the field and he could have those big games no matter what's around him, and he could get a couple dubs. So that team, that roster was already pretty good last year. Just the coaching was ass. So hopefully with the improvement in coaching, the bigger additions that they've made, and I don't care if Njoku doesn't want to fucking be there. You throw in Hooper with their two wideouts, Jarvis and Odell. Then you have Grant Delpit along with all that fucking secondary. Hopefully that defense will do better. He'll have better possessions. And then with Coughlin and then fucking Jedrick Wills, I just think the Browns are going to have a significantly better season. Instead of going 6-10, I believe they switch that shit and go 10-6. So that's my hot take.
It's a good transition into mine. I'll start it. I got two that go together and then one that's kind of separate, but they're all AFC North. First off, I'm going to say right now, I know some of my hot takes conflict. That's kind of the point of hot takes, at least to me, is they're not always going to work out, so they're going to conflict sometimes. But I think 3 teams make it out of the AFC North. I also think 3 teams finish out of the AFC North with better than a 10-6 record. Or a 10-6 or better record. Let me say that. Not better than a 10-6. I think both Browns and Steelers have potential to go 10-6, and then the Ravens obviously have potential to do better. But I could definitely see this team putting out, the 2 seed, the 5 seed, and the 6 seed at, whether it be 14-2, 10-6, and 11-5, whatever it may be. I think all of their records will be 10-6. I think the Browns roster, as shitty as their organization is, they've actually continued to make the right moves. I love Kevin Stefanski. I love their offseason pickups. I just think they've done the right thing. So I think they're finally going to redeem themselves and go 10-6. And then the Steelers, obviously, like I said before, their defense and coach is just too good. And then, so that kind of leads into the Steelers. My second hot take is Ben Roethlisberger will play 16 games and lead the Steelers to a 10-6 season. And I don't remember when the last time we saw Ben Roethlisberger play 16 games. I hope he doesn't, because I don't like him. But, that's my hot take for today. He's going to make 16 games, and they're going to go 10-6 behind Big Ben. And then my final hot take is going to be Lamar Jackson. He is going to go ahead and break that rushing record from last year. That's my hot take for him. I think he will break that rushing record from last year. A lot of what I've seen is people like he's going to take a huge step back in the running game because he's going to try to start passing more. And I do think he'll try to start passing more, but I think he knows when it's time to go, it's time to go. So I'm going to say he's breaking that.
I have a question in relation to your hot take, because one of your hot takes, because it relates to a hot take you had a while ago, maybe a few weeks ago. What division do you see having the higher chance of having 3 teams come out to the playoffs? The AFC West, which you've talked about, or the AFC North?
I think the AFC North has bigger, like, if we're going to break it down to percentages, I think they have a bigger chance just because I think they're the deeper division. But I think the AFC West, also has a really decent chance to bring out 3 teams out of its division, because obviously the Broncos are improving. The Chiefs are a top 3 team in football. You have the Chargers, who are on a huge downswing, and then the Raiders, who also have potential. Like, I see the Raiders and the Browns almost as equal. What makes the difference for me between the 2 divisions is when I look at the Broncos and I compare them to the Steelers have the track record and the Broncos don't. The Broncos are almost like the Browns as well, to where they're this young team that still needs to come out and prove themselves, but they have all the talent there to do that. But again, they still need to come out and prove themselves. And I think in the AFC North, you get 2 proven winners, and then you get the Browns, who are a young team who need to come out and prove themselves. With the AFC West, you have obviously the Super Bowl champions, and then you have 2 teams in the Raiders and the Broncos that need to come out and prove themselves. So I would definitely give AFC North a bigger percentage. But if I'm looking at the whole NFL, I think NFC West has like a 95% chance of contributing 3 teams to the playoffs this year. And it could be any 3 of the teams. I could see any one of the teams not making the playoffs and any 3 of the teams making the playoffs. It's really just a toss-up in that division.
I also wanted to mention that you have definitely just said the hottest take that you've ever said. It's making me sit here and go, and that is that Big Ben's going to play 16 games.
Yeah, I don't know the last time. I like, really, in my immediate memory, I don't remember the last time Big Ben played 16 games. I don't. It's been so long, like at least 5 years, 5+ years that he's played more than 14 games. But I'm going to go out on a limb and just say, maybe this year's the year. He's going to play 16 games, and maybe it's his last year because he played 16 games, and I'll respect that, even though I don't respect him. I'll respect that. But, I do think he could contribute something this year, and I think he's going to come out with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder to kind of actually stay healthy, because I think that's his biggest criticism is, like, what have you done in the last 10 years? You've played 16 full game season. And then every other season, like, all but 2 of them you've played less than 10 games. So it's like, we saw a lot of Josh Dobbs, which was a good backup quarterback. But now, you bring Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges back there. I'm not huge on those guys, but Mike Tomlin found a way to win. So I'm just going to count them as 10-6, whether who's playing, but it's more the hot take that Big Ben is going to play 16 games. They're going 10-6 no matter what, but Big Ben is going to play 16 games.
Philanthropist, what is your hot takes for the day?
You're going to love this one, man. My hot take for the day is that the Miami Dolphins are going to win the AFC East.
Whoa.
I love their roster. I love their coach. I think Tua is the real deal, barring any health issues. I think they have a number one receiver. I think they have a good running game. I think they have a franchise quarterback. I think they have a great defense. I think they have a great coach. And
Yes.
I love to bring up the fact that I don't like Josh Allen or Sam Darnold in that
Okay.
division. So the only thing standing in their way, as usual, is the Patriots, which will be an obstacle. But I think they're going to take it. I think they're going to win one in Miami. They might split with the New England game. And I think they're going to finish with the better record.
To be fair, Fitzpatrick will be starting the season, it's looking like.
Yeah.
But also, like we talked about earlier, Fitzpatrick brings, like, he's in that top 3 swaggiest players in the
tell
league.
me-
He might start it, but he's not going to finish it.
No, and I agree with
Fitzpatrick is a superstar again. I
No,
might have to
I
go
was
over
not
there
saying that.
right now and beat your ass.
I was not saying that he's a superstar, but he brings a swagger to the field that a lot of other players can't bring. And at the quarterback position, it is very, like a lot of the other players will pick up on that and carry that swagger.
He's
too.
the best. He's one of the
That's all
best
I'm saying
backup.
that.
One of the best backup quarterbacks of all time.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
No
And
question.
he can bring it to the table as a number 1 quarterback when he needs to.
Yeah.
As we saw some games last year, as we've seen throughout his career, whether it was on the Jets, the Bucks, he's played for like 10 teams. It doesn't even matter at this point, but he brings it. And that's at the end of the day, Ryan Fitzpatrick brings it. And whether it's week 6 and they're 3-2 and they're like, it's time for Tua, I'll respect it. And Ryan Fitzpatrick has done his fucking job.
Yeah, you can beat your cheeks on any fucking Sunday. And
Which
you got to
makes me
respect it.
mad. He can
Pat
go-
McAfee always says he's got the brain of a Harvard man because he graduated from Harvard, but he's got the heart of a plumber.
Bro, I mean, there's not many players in the NFL that I can look at and go, yeah, he could throw 400 yards and then rush for another 50 today. But Ryan Fitzpatrick is one of those fucking guys.
He led the Dolphins in rushing last year. It was abysmal.
That's
Hey,
ass.
It's
Gotta
so
do
sad.
what you gotta do.
All right. We're going to cut it right here. We're heading up on 2 hours. Great fucking podcast. That is unfortunately our last deep dive. We've hit every single fucking division. So you know what? That means when the next episode that comes out on Monday, we're going to give you our full season predictions, what we're going to be expecting in the playoffs for the NFL, and then of course, who our Super Bowl champion will be. And we're going to try to figure out if maybe the 49ers will be runners up again. We don't know. And thank you guys for joining us. If you liked this podcast, of course, give it a fucking like. What are you doing? If we said anything fucking dumb too, leave it in the fucking comments. We want to fucking argue with you guys. This is the whole point. We're sitting on the couch just like fucking you getting mad about the same shit. So let's hear it. Let's have some conversations. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you've made it this far in the podcast, of course, thank you. We're almost to episode 10. I think we've decided after every 10 episodes, we're going to do like some of the biggest highlights. So look forward to doing that. Young E, Philanthropist, do you guys have any closing remarks before we head out?
Hey, I just want to say, I know one person that has probably made it to the end of this episode. So I want to shout out my mom. She's really into sports, and I know she's been watching our podcast since last week. So I want to shout out my mom. I know she probably made it to this point. So just shout out to her. Thank you for supporting us. To anybody that has made it to this point, thank you for supporting us.
Yeah, definitely.
We are really trying to do what we can do to get this podcast hyped up and move it along. So any help or any hours watched or anything we could get is always appreciated. So
Definitely.
Thank you to anyone who's made it to this point, but I know probably my mom has made it to this point. So shout out to moms.
Shout out.
And I want to say to Young E's mom, I hope I'm talking well enough for you. I come off quite quiet, but when it comes to this, I hope I'm doing well. Philanthropist, you got anything else to say before we head out?
No, man, just thank you to everybody who's been listening. And if you made it this far, thank you again. And looking forward to continuing this with you guys.
Awesome.
Definitely.
All right, and that is the Couch Sports Talk podcast. Again, thank you for joining us. I'm here with Young E, philanthropist, signing out on another Thursday night for you, Friday morning. Subscribe, like,
See you on Monday.
comment, follow us on Twitter. We're not going to tell you the Twitter handles. Find us. All right, guys. Adios.